The crystal chandeliers of the Metropolitan Museum cast dancing shadows across marble floors as Emma Charlotte adjusted her borrowed black dress for the 100th time. The scholarship invitation to tonight's exclusive art auction felt like a golden ticket to a world she could only dream of entering. Her paint-stained fingers traced the elegant fabric nervously as she watched New York's elite glide through the gallery like beautiful, untouchable swans. "Just breathe, Emma," she whispered to herself, clutching her small purse that contained exactly $43 and a subway card. The artwork surrounding her represented more money than she would see in 10 lifetimes. Yet here she stood among billionaires and socialites, feeling like an imposter in designer clothing. A world apart, the evening's featured collection showcased contemporary pieces by emerging artists, the very reason Emma had been selected for the scholarship program. Professor Helena Davis had insisted she attend, claiming it would be educational to see how the art world's upper echelons operated. Emma was beginning to understand that educational meant humbling in professor speak. Conversations flowed around her in multiple languages, discussing stock portfolios and vacation homes with the same casual tone. Emma used to debate which instant noodles offered the best value. Women draped in diamonds that could fund her entire education sipped champagne that cost more than her monthly rent, while men in custom suits made deals that would reshape entire industries. The mysterious figure crossed the crowded gallery. A man stood alone by a massive abstract painting, his presence commanding attention without effort. Tall and imposing, he wore his expensive suit-like armor, creating an invisible barrier that kept the crowd at a respectful distance. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his jawline sharp enough to cut glass, and his gray-blue eyes held an intensity that made Emma's breath catch. He moved through the crowd with predatory grace, speaking in low tones to various business associates while maintaining an expression of controlled indifference. There was something magnetic yet dangerous about him, like watching a beautiful storm from a safe distance. Emma found herself stealing glances, wondering what thoughts lurked behind those calculating eyes. The cruelty of privilege's attention was suddenly drawn to a commotion near the refreshment table. A young server, probably no older than 19, had accidentally bumped into an older woman dripping with jewelry and entitlement. The crystal glass had shattered against the marble floor, sending champagne splashing across designer shoes. "Clumsy little fool," the woman hissed, her voice carrying the sharp edge of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Do you have any idea how much these shoes cost? It's more than you make in 6 months, I'm certain." The server's face flushed crimson as she scrambled to clean up the mess with cocktail napkins. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. Please, let me help you. Don't touch me with those grubby hands." Another socialite joined in, her tone dripping with disdain. "Honestly, where do they find these people? This is why I always bring my own staff to important events." Standing up for justice, Emma's art supplies budget might be non-existent, but her sense of justice burned bright and fierce. Up watching her single mother work 3 jobs to keep them afloat, understanding intimately what it meant to be dismissed by those who believed money made them superior human beings. "Excuse me," Emma said, approaching the group with her chin raised and shoulders squared. "I think you're confusing a charity auction with a public execution." The jewelry-laden woman turned toward Emma with a look that could freeze champagne. "I beg your pardon. Who exactly are you?" "Someone who believes accidents happen to everyone, regardless of their net worth," Emma replied smoothly, moving to help the young server gather the glass fragments. Though apparently good manners are much rarer than designer shoes, dangerous. Silence fell over the immediate area as nearby conversations stopped. Emma could feel eyes turning toward them, smartphones being raised discreetly to capture whatever drama was unfolding. The confrontation escalates. "How dare you speak to me that way?" the woman sputtered, her face turning an unflattering shade of purple. "Do you know who I am? My husband sits on the board of this museum. I could have you thrown out with a single phone call." "Then maybe you should call him," Emma suggested, standing to her full height beside the grateful server. "I'm sure he'd love to explain to the museum donors why his wife was bullying a teenage employee at a charity event." The second socialite stepped forward, her designer clutch raised like a weapon. "You have some nerve, little girl. This is not your world. You clearly don't belong here." "You're absolutely right," Emma said, her voice carrying across the now sealant gallery. "No. I don't belong in a world where grown women think it's acceptable to humiliate children who are just trying to do their jobs." Enter the storm. That's when Emma noticed him approaching. The mysterious man from across the gallery was moving toward their group with purposeful strides. His expression unreadable, but his presence commanding immediate attention. The crowd seemed to part automatically before him, creating a clear path. Through the tension, his voice, when he spoke, carried a British accent wrapped in steel. "Is there a problem here, ladies?" The effect was immediate and dramatic. The bullying socialites went from aggressive to deferential in seconds, their hostile expressions melting into nervous smiles. "Mr. Knight, what a pleasure. We were just having a small misunderstanding." "I can see that," he interrupted, his cold gaze moving between the women and the still trembling server. "Perhaps it would be best if you ladies found somewhere else to continue your evening." It wasn't a suggestion. The women gathered their dignity and designer bags, muttering apologies and excuses as they retreated toward the far end of the gallery. The crowd began to disperse, sensing the immediate drama had concluded. The moment that changed everything, Emma found herself alone with the mysterious stranger, acutely aware of his piercing gaze studying her face. He was even more intimidating. Up close, radiating power and control in a way that made her simultaneously nervous and oddly attracted. "Thank you," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Though I had the situation handled." Something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. "I'm sure you did. You have impressive courage for someone who clearly doesn't belong in this world." "Second person to tell me that tonight," Emma replied, bristling slightly at the implication, though you said it much more politely. The corner of his mouth twitched in what could generously be called a smile. "I meant it as a compliment. Most people here wouldn't have bothered to help." The kiss that shocked the world. Emma looked at this man who commanded respect with his mere presence, who had stepped in to defend her cause and made a decision that would change both their lives forever. The gallery buzzed with whispered conversations and discreet photography, but she was tired of being careful, tired of second-guessing herself. "You know what?" she said, loud enough for the nearest groups to hear. "I think this evening calls for a statement." Before he could ask what she meant, Emma stepped forward, reached up to cup his perfectly sculpted face in her hands and kissed him. Not a gentle, hesitant kiss, but a firm, confident declaration that lasted exactly long enough for every smartphone in the vicinity to capture it from multiple angles. When she pulled away, the entire gallery had fallen into stunned silence. The mysterious Mr. Knight stood frozen, his usual mask of control completely shattered, staring down at her with an expression of complete bewilderment. "Thank you for standing up for what's right," Emma whispered, her hands still resting on his chest. "Sometimes the world needs to see that kindness still exists." She stepped back, gave him one last smile, and walked toward the exit with her head held high, leaving behind a gallery full of gaping socialites and one very confused billionaire, who, for the first time in years, had absolutely no idea what to say. The aftermath begins as Emma waited for the elevator. She could hear the explosion of conversations behind her, smartphones buzzing with notifications as videos and photos spread. Across social media, she had no idea that the man she'd just kissed was Sebastian Knight, founder and CEO of Knight Industries, one of the most powerful tech companies in the world. She had no idea that he hadn't been touched by genuine, human warmth in over 5 years. She had no idea that her impulsive kiss had just set in motion a series of events that would transform both their carefully constructed worlds. All Emma knew was that sometimes you had to take a stand, even if it meant kissing a stranger in front of half of Manhattan's elite. Sometimes you had to choose courage over caution, even when you had no idea what consequences would follow. The elevator doors closed, carrying her back to her real world of student loans and ramen dinners, completely unaware that she had just gone viral, kissing the most unreachable man in America. Behind her, Sebastian Knight remained standing in the same spot, his fingers unconsciously touching his lips, wondering if he had just experienced a miracle or a catastrophe. Either way, he knew his perfectly controlled life would never be the same again. Emma woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing like an angry wasp trapped in a jar. Sunlight streamed through the thin curtains of her tiny Brooklyn apartment, and for a blissful moment, she forgot about the previous evening's dramatic events. Then she saw her phone screen 40-7 missed calls, 63 text messages. Her social media notifications had exceeded the display limit. "Oh no," she whispered, sitting up in her narrow bed. Her roommate David Chen was already awake. Pacing the small living space with his laptop open, his expression somewhere between amazement and panic. "Emma, you need to see this," David said, turning the screen toward her. "You've broken the internet." Headline made her stomach drop. Mystery woman kisses tech billionaire Sebastian Knight at charity auction, video goes viral.
Oh.
The viral sensation, the video had been viewed over 2 million times in 8 hours. Comments ranged from admiration for her boldness, to speculation about her identity, to detailed analysis of Sebastian Knight's shocked expression.
As.
Someone had already created a slow-motion version set to dramatic music. "Sebastian Knight, Emma," repeated the name, her memory clicking into place. The Sebastian Knight, founder of Knight Industries, net worth somewhere around $15 billion. It's the same Sebastian Knight, who hasn't been photographed with a woman in 3 years, David added, scrolling through article after article. The same Sebastian Knight who's famous for being completely emotionally unavailable. "Emma, you kissed the Ice King of Manhattan." Emma buried her face in her hands. "I kissed a stranger. A very powerful, very private stranger who probably has teams of lawyers and security personnel." The unexpected visitor, a sharp knock at the door, interrupted her spiraling thoughts. David peered through the peephole, and his face went pale. "Emma, there's a man in a very expensive suit outside our door. He's holding flowers and looks like he could bench press our refrigerator." Emma threw on a robe and cautiously opened the door to find a tall, professionally dressed man with kind eyes and an amused expression. "Miss Charlotte, I presume?" "I'm James Monroe, personal assistant to Sebastian Knight. My employer would like to speak with you." "Is he going to sue me?" Emma asked, clutching her robe tighter. "Because I can explain about the kiss. It was impulsive, and I didn't know who he was," and James held up a hand with a gentle smile. "Miss Charlotte, Mr. Knight is not here to cause you any trouble. Quite the opposite, actually. He's waiting downstairs in his car and would very much appreciate a few minutes of your time." Face to face again 10 minutes later, Emma found herself sliding into the back seat of the most luxurious car she had ever seen. Sebastian Knight sat across from her, looking just as imposing in daylight as he had under the museum's chandeliers. He wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than her annual tuition, and his expression was carefully neutral. "Miss Charlotte," he said, his voice carrying that same crisp accent that had made the socialites scatter. "I hope you slept well, considering the circumstances." "About as well as someone who accidentally kissed a billionaire and became an internet sensation overnight," Emma replied, surprised by her own boldness. "I want to apologize for putting you in an uncomfortable position. The kiss was completely inappropriate." Sebastian studied her for a long moment, something unreadable flickering in his gray-blue eyes. "Actually, Miss Charlotte, I'm here because I have a proposition for you." The unexpected offer, a proposition, Emma repeated slowly, wondering if she should be insulted or intrigued. "Nothing inappropriate," Sebastian clarified quickly. And she caught a glimpse of something almost vulnerable beneath his controlled exterior. "I'm talking about a business arrangement. A mutually beneficial agreement that could solve problems for both of us." He handed her a tablet displaying news articles and social media posts.
Oh.
"Your kiss has created an interesting situation. The first time in years, the media is portraying me as someone capable of human emotion. My company's stock has actually risen 3% since the video went viral." Emma scrolled through the headlines, noting the shift in tone. Instead of Ice King, an emotionally unavailable billionaire, the articles now used phrases like mysterious romance and softening the tech titan's heart. "I don't understand how this helps me," Emma said, handing back the tablet. The contract proposal. Sebastian leaned forward slightly, his business mask firmly in place. "My board of directors has been pressuring me to settle down to project a more relatable public image. They believe it would be beneficial for the company's reputation and my personal brand." "And you want me to be your fake girlfriend?" Emma said, the pieces falling into place. "I want you to be my fake girlfriend," he confirmed. In 6 months, carefully orchestrated public appearances, a few social media posts, strategic photo opportunities. "In exchange, I'll pay you enough money to cover your student loans, your living expenses, and provide a substantial sum for your future endeavors." He named a figure that made Emma's eyes widen. It was more money than she had ever imagined having, Understanding his world, there would be rules. Of course, Sebastian continued. You would need to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Your wardrobe would be handled by my stylist. All public appearances would be coordinated through my public relations team. What about my real life? Emma asked. My art, my studies, my friends. You would continue your normal activities within reason? The arrangement would simply add a layer of scheduled appearances and social obligations. Emma looked out the car window at her neighborhood, where people hurried to work and children played in small parks. It was a world away from charity auctions and billionaire contracts. Can I ask you something? She said, turning back to Sebastian. When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to, not because it was good for business or expected of you? Cracks in the armor, the question seemed to catch Sebastian off guard. He was quiet for a long moment, his perfectly controlled expression wavering slightly. I don't make decisions based on personal desires. I make decisions based on logic and strategic benefit. That's not what I asked. Sebastian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Charlotte, my personal preferences are irrelevant to this discussion. Are they, though? Emma pressed, sensing something raw beneath his polished surface. Because it seems like you're asking me to help you pretend to be human, which suggests you've forgotten how to actually be human. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken truths. Emma watched emotions flicker across Sebastian's face like shadows through curtains. Gone too quickly to identify, but definitely present. The real Sebastian, you want to know the truth. Sebastian said finally, his voice quieter than before. The last time I did something purely because I wanted to was 7 years ago. I bought a motorcycle, a Ducati Panigale. It serves no practical purpose, costs a fortune to maintain, and my insurance company thinks I'm insane. Do you still ride it? Emma asked softly. Every Sunday morning at dawn? I take it up the coast highway for 2 hours, and for that brief time, I'm not a CEO or a public figure or anyone's expectation. I'm just someone who likes the feeling of speed and freedom. Emma felt something shift in her chest. This glimpse of the real Sebastian, the man hidden beneath layers of corporate armor, was infinitely more interesting than any amount of money he could offer. Making her decision, I have conditions, Emma said suddenly. Sebastian's eyebrows rose slightly. You haven't agreed to anything yet? I'm agreeing now, but with conditions. First, I maintain my artistic integrity. No corporate propaganda or sanitized social media posts. If we're going to do this, we do it authentically. Agreed. Second, you have to teach me about your world, but I get to show you mine too. Art galleries, street food, normal people doing normal things. I don't see how that benefits either of us. Because, Emma said, surprising herself with her certainty, if we're going to convince people we're falling in love, we need to actually know each other. And right now, you're more like a beautiful robot than a person I could fall for. Arrangement begins. Sebastian was quiet for several minutes, processing her words. When he finally spoke, there was something different in his voice, something less controlled. 6 months, Miss Charlotte. You help me prove to my board that I'm capable of maintaining a stable relationship, and I help you secure your financial future. 6 months, Emma agreed, extending her hand. But I want to add one more condition, which is, at any point this starts to feel real, if either of us develops genuine feelings, we address it honestly. No pretending, no corporate spin, no protecting the arrangement over protecting each other. Sebastian stared at her outstretched hand for a long moment before taking it. His palm was warm, calloused in surprising places, and the contact sent an unexpected jolt of electricity up her arm. Deal, he said, and Emma noticed he didn't let go of her hand immediately. The first public appearance 3 days later, Emma found herself at La Bernardine, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants, wearing a dress that cost more than her previous wardrobe combined. Sebastian sat across from her, looking perfectly at ease in the elegant surroundings, while she tried not to knock over the crystal wine glasses. Relax, he said quietly, reaching across the table to cover her nervous fingers with his hand. You look beautiful, and you belong here as much as anyone else. The gesture was meant for the cameras she could see flashing discreetly from other tables, but the warmth in his voice seemed genuine. Emma found herself studying his face, noting the way his usually cold expression softened when he thought no one was watching. Tell me something real about yourself, she said, leaning forward as if sharing an intimate secret. Something that's not in your official biography? Discovering the man behind the mask, Sebastian's hand tightened slightly on hers. What do you want to know? What scares you? Emma asked. What keeps the great Sebastian Knight awake at night? For a moment, his mask slipped completely. Becoming my father, he said quietly. Dying alone in a hospital room surrounded by business associates instead of people who actually care about me. The honesty in his voice caught Emma off guard. This wasn't the controlled businessman from their contract negotiation. This was someone vulnerable, someone afraid, someone who had spent so long building walls that he'd forgotten how to let people in. No, that's not going to happen, Emma said softly, meaning it more than she expected to. How can you be so certain? Because, Emma said, surprised by the conviction in her own voice, you're braver than you think. You just need someone to remind you how to be human again. The unexpected chemistry as the evening progressed, Emma found herself genuinely enjoying Sebastian's company. Beneath his corporate exterior, he was intelligent, surprisingly funny, and deeply passionate about technology's potential to solve global problems. He listened to her talk about art with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions about her creative process. You know, Emma said as they shared dessert, this doesn't feel like work. What does it feel like? Sebastian asked, his voice softer than usual. Like getting to know someone I might actually like, Emma admitted, then caught herself. I mean, for the arrangement, for making it believable. But even as she said the words, she knew they weren't entirely true. The way Sebastian looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, the way his laugh seemed surprised out of him, the way his hand lingered on hers just a moment longer than necessary for the cameras, it all felt dangerously real. The shadow. From the pastas they left the restaurant, a flash of blonde hair in the crowd caught Emma's attention. A stunning woman in an elegant coat was watching them from across the street, her expression unreadable but intense. When their eyes met, the woman smiled. But there was something cold and calculating in the expression. Sebastian, Emma said. Quietly, who is that woman watching us? Sebastian followed her gaze and his entire body went rigid. Victoria Sterling, he said, his voice suddenly flat and emotionless. My ex-fiancé. Ex-fiancé, Emma repeated, feeling an unexpected stab of something that might have been jealousy. She's supposed to be in London, Sebastian said, his jaw tightening. What is she doing here? The blonde woman raised her hand in a small wave, then disappeared into the crowd, leaving behind an air of threat that made Emma's skin crawl. This complicates things, Sebastian said grimly. How so? Sebastian looked down at Emma, and she saw something that might have been protectiveness in his eyes. Because Victoria Sterling doesn't believe in letting go of things she considers hers. She's never learned to lose gracefully. As they drove through the city lights back to Emma's apartment, both of them sensed that their carefully arranged fake relationship was about to become much more complicated than either had anticipated. Victoria Sterling's return meant that the game they were playing was about to have real stakes, real consequences, real dangers. Neither of them realized that their biggest challenge wouldn't be convincing the world that they were falling in love. It would be admitting to themselves that they already were. 3 weeks into their arrangement, Emma's life had transformed beyond recognition. Designer clothes filled her tiny closet, invitations to exclusive events arrived daily, and her face appeared in society magazines alongside Sebastian's. But beneath the glamorous surface, something dangerous was brewing. Victoria Sterling had been busy. Emma noticed her everywhere now, always at the edge of their social events, always watching. With that calculating smile, she appeared at gallery openings Emma attended, dined at restaurants where they had reservations, and somehow managed to be photographed near them with suspicious frequency. She's playing a long game, David warned during one of their coffee meetings in Brooklyn. I've been researching her online. Victoria Sterling doesn't just date men, she collects them like trophies, and she really doesn't like sharing. Emma stirred her latte nervously. Sebastian says she's harmless, just trying to make him jealous. Emma, look at me, David said seriously. You're falling for him, aren't you? This isn't just pretend anymore. Admitting the truth, Emma wanted to deny it, but the words stuck in her throat. Over the past weeks, she had seen Sebastian transform from the cold, controlled businessman into someone warmer, more genuine. He remembered how she liked her coffee, sent her texts about art exhibitions he thought she'd enjoy, and had even started, smiling spontaneously instead of just for cameras. "It doesn't matter how I feel," Emma said finally. "This is a business arrangement with an expiration date. In 3 months, I go back to my real life, and he goes back to his board meetings and quarterly reports." "Does he know how you feel?" "Of course not. The contract specifically states that personal feelings should not interfere with professional obligations."
Oh.
David shook his head. "Emma, you're setting yourself up for heartbreak." The charity gala that evening, Emma and Sebastian attended the annual Children's Hospital Charity Gala, their most high-profile appearance yet. Emma wore a stunning midnight blue gown that made her feel like a princess, and Sebastian looked devastatingly handsome in his custom tuxedo. As they moved through the crowd, Emma noticed how naturally they had learned to work together. Sebastian's hand on her lower back felt protective rather than possessive, and when he leaned down to whisper something in her ear, it wasn't just for show anymore. "Hey, you're incredible tonight," he murmured as they posed for photographers. "That laugh of yours is going to be front-page news tomorrow." "Just playing my part," Emma replied, but her heart skipped at the warmth in his voice. "Are you?" Sebastian asked quietly. And something in his tone made her look up at him sharply. Before she could respond, Victoria Sterling appeared beside them, like a beautiful viper in emerald silk. "The confrontation, Sebastian?" "Darling," Victoria said, air-kissing his cheek with practiced elegance. "And Emma, isn't it? How lovely to finally meet you properly." Victoria was even more stunning up close, with platinum blonde hair, perfect features, and eyes like blue ice. She radiated the kind of confidence that came from never having been told no. "Victoria," Sebastian said stiffly, "I wasn't aware you were back in New York." "Oh, I couldn't miss the charity season," Victoria replied sweetly. "Besides, I was so curious about your new friend. Emma, Sebastian has told me absolutely nothing about you." "Where did you two meet?" Emma felt Sebastian tense beside her. "At an art auction," she said carefully. "How romantic. And what do you do, dear?" "I'm an art student." Victoria's smile sharpened. How perfectly bohemian. I'm sure it's fascinating, living in such a different world from Sebastian's. The comment was delivered with surgical precision, designed to highlight exactly how little Emma belonged in Sebastian's elite circles. Secrets revealed later that evening. As they danced to the orchestra's elegant waltz, Sebastian was unusually quiet. Emma could feel tension radiating from his body, and his usual easy conversation had disappeared. "What did Victoria mean about your different worlds?" Emma asked as they swayed together. Sebastian's jaw tightened. "Victoria has very specific ideas. About social compatibility. Sebastian, there's something you're not telling me. About her? About your past? About why she's really here?" He guided her off the dance floor to a quiet balcony overlooking Central Park. The city lights sparkled below them like fallen stars, and the night air carried the scent of late summer flowers. "Victoria and I were engaged for 2 years," Sebastian said finally. "She broke it off 3 weeks before our wedding." Emma's heart clenched. "What happened?" "She said I was too cold, too focused on business, incapable of real emotion." The voice was carefully controlled, but Emma could hear the old pain beneath it. "She said loving me was like trying to warm herself by a beautiful statue." "The truth about love, Sebastian," Emma said softly, reaching up to touch his face. "She was wrong." "Was she?" he asked, covering her hand with his. "Because until I met you, I was beginning to think she was right." The confession hung between them like a bridge. Neither was sure they should cross. Emma felt her breath catch as Sebastian's eyes searched her face. "What are you saying?" she whispered. "I'm saying that somewhere in the middle of our fake relationship, I started falling in love with you for real." Sebastian's voice was rough with emotion. "I'm saying that you make me want to be the man I was before I learned to protect myself. From everyone and everything." Emma's heart soared and broke at the same time. "Sebastian, the contract. Forget the contract," he said fiercely. "Forget the board, forget the arrangement, forget everything except this moment." He kissed her then, not for cameras or public perception, but because he couldn't help himself. Emma melted into him, finally allowing herself to feel everything she had been holding back. Victoria's revenge there moment was shattered by the sound of slow, deliberate applause. Victoria Sterling stood in the balcony doorway, her phone held high, clearly having recorded their entire conversation. How touching, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. So I have to say, Sebastian, your acting has certainly improved. Victoria, what do you want? Sebastian stepped protectively in front of Emma. Justice, Victoria replied simply. You humiliated me 3 years ago, left me at the altar of social expectation. Now it's your turn to understand how it feels to lose everything you care about. She held up her phone. This lovely video of your confession will be very interesting to your board of directors. I wonder how they'll feel about discovering that their CEO has been lying to them about his fake relationship. I wonder how Miss Emma will feel when she realizes that dating you has destroyed your career. The Choisema felt the blood drain from her face. You can't do this. Sebastian's worked his entire life to build his company. But I can, Victoria said pleasantly. Unless, of course, Sebastian would like to come back to me where he belongs. I'm willing to be very forgiving, for old time's sake. Sebastian's hand found Emma's, squeezing gently. Never, he said quietly. I'd rather lose everything than spend another day pretending to love someone I don't. Victoria's mask of civility finally slipped, revealing the rage beneath. Therein, they'll have nothing. No company, no reputation, no future. And when Miss Emma realizes what loving you has cost, she'll leave just like everyone else. She turned to Emma with a victorious smile. Enjoy your few remaining days of luxury, dear. They'll be your last. Fighting back, after Victoria left Emma, and Sebastian stood in stunned silence on the balcony. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on them like a physical force. I have to end this, Emma said suddenly. I have to disappear, break our contract, tell everyone it was all fake. Maybe if I take all the blame? No, Sebastian said firmly. We're not giving her what she wants. Sebastian, be realistic. If that video gets out, your board will remove you as CEO. Everything you've worked for will be gone. Then I'll build something new, Sebastian said, his voice growing stronger with conviction. Emma, I spent 32 years building a life. That looked perfect on paper but felt empty inside. These past few weeks with you have been more real than anything I've experienced in years. He took her hands in both of his. I don't want to be the kind of man who sacrifices love for corporate approval. I don't want to wake up in 20 years wondering what might have happened if I'd been brave enough to choose you. The board meeting too. Days later, Sebastian called an emergency board meeting. Emma waited in his office while he faced the 12 most powerful business leaders in New York. Knowing that Victoria's video was already making its rounds through social media and business news outlets. Through the glass walls, she could see the heated discussion, the disappointed faces, the sharp gestures of men and women who felt betrayed by their golden boy CEO. James Monroe appeared beside her with coffee and a sympathetic expression. Whatever happens, he said quietly, Mr. Knight is happier than I've seen him in years. That has to count for something. When Sebastian finally emerged from the boardroom, his expression was unreadable. Emma searched his face for clues about the outcome, her heart hammering against her ribs. Well, she asked when she couldn't stand the suspense any longer. Sebastian smiled. And it was the most genuine, free expression she had ever seen on his face. I'm no longer the CEO of Knight Industries. Emma's heart broke for him. I'm so sorry, don't be, he interrupted, pulling her into his arms. They offered me a choice. Give you up and retain my position, or keep you and lose everything else. And you chose me, Emma whispered, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he had sacrificed. I chose us, Sebastian corrected. I chose a future, where I get to wake up next to someone who sees the real me, not just the corporate facade. New beginnings. 6 months later, Emma stood in the converted warehouse that housed their new art gallery and tech innovation space. Sebastian had used his severance package and personal savings to create something entirely new, a place where art and technology could intersect to solve social problems. Their first exhibition featured Emma's paintings alongside interactive displays, showing how Knight Technologies, Sebastian's new company, was developing apps to help homeless populations access resources and support. Any regrets? Emma asked, as they watched visitors explore their joint creation. Sebastian pulled her close, spinning her around in the middle of their gallery. Only that it took me 32 years to realize that the best business decision I ever made was falling in love with you. Even though Victoria tried to destroy us, especially because of that Sebastian said, his voice warm with conviction. She taught me that love worth having is love worth fighting for. The perfect ending is the evening wound down, and their last. Visitors departed. Emma and Sebastian found themselves alone in their gallery, surrounded by art and possibility. The space hummed with the energy of new beginnings, of dreams being built from scratch. Emma, Sebastian said, dropping to one knee beside a painting she had created of their first kiss at the museum. I know we started with a fake relationship and a business contract, but I want to end with something real. He pulled out a simple, elegant ring. Will you marry me? Not for business, not for appearances, not for anyone else's approval, just because I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that some things are more valuable than money or power or corporate success. Emma's eyes filled with tears as she looked down at the man who had learned to choose love over everything else he thought mattered. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, absolutely yes. As Sebastian slipped the ring onto her finger, Emma realized that sometimes the most unexpected journeys led to the most perfect destinations. Sometimes a single impulsive kiss could change two lives forever. Sometimes love really did conquer all. Epilogue. 5 years. Later, the Knight Foundation had become one of New York's most innovative nonprofits, combining Emma's artistic vision with Sebastian's technological expertise to create programs that transformed communities. Their gallery hosted monthly events where artists and entrepreneurs collaborated on solutions to social challenges. Emma's paintings now hung in museums around the world, but her favorite piece remained the small canvas in their home office that captured the moment she first kissed Sebastian at the museum. It's the moment that changed everything. Sebastian had never regretted leaving the corporate world. Building something meaningful with the woman he loved had given him more satisfaction than any quarterly profit report ever could. In Victoria, Sterling had eventually moved to London permanently, where she married a duke and presumably lived happily ever after in her world of calculated relationships and social climbing. On quiet Sunday mornings, Sebastian and Emma would take his motorcycle up the coast highway, racing toward the sunrise with their arms wrapped around each other and their hearts full of possibility. They had learned that the best love stories weren't the ones that followed conventional rules, but the ones brave enough to write their own ending. In a world that often valued image over authenticity, they had chosen truth. In a society that measured success by bank balances, they had chosen happiness. And in choosing each other, they had discovered that sometimes the most impulsive decisions led to the most beautiful destinies. Their love story had begun with a kiss that shocked the world. It continued with a choice that surprised even themselves, and it would endure because they had learned the most important lesson of all, that real love isn't about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone who makes you want to be the best version of yourself.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to our channel, Life-Changing True Stories, and this is your host, Alistair. Guys, we're going to talk about why this channel was created. So when we were traveling around the world and we were interviewing people, people always were inclined towards love and spreading love. And that gave us an idea that we should be sharing love stories with the entire world. And this is what we're doing. And I think we're doing pretty good at the moment because there are millions and millions of people watching us. They're letting us know how they feel. They let us know with their comments. They let us know by sharing. And this is how we understand you guys are loving what we post. So on this channel, what you find is you will find different sort of love stories, different sort of love connections, different sort of love experiences that people from around the world have felt. And you know, these days, everybody wants to fall in love, but it's not that easy, guys. It's not that easy. Love is not a bed of roses that you can get on any day. It's not like a Sunday. So this channel has been crafted with a lot of effort, a lot of blood and sweat that we have put into this. Interviewing people has never been an easy job. There are people who would not open up with us, but then when they watch our love stories and when they watch our channel, they feel they should be sharing their love stories as well. And love can be amazing, love can be hard, And this is what we want to show you guys through our channel. Let's go on to the story now.